Welcome to the Essence of Ramdasness YouTube channel. Here you will find short videos that each discuss just one of his well-known quotes or key spiritual lessons. Today I am discussing what I consider to be one of the most important of all spiritual lessons. It is also one of the most difficult ones for any of us to get our heads completely around. That is that our death is absolutely safe. To be human is to be mortal. No one gets out of this thing alive. We are all going to be recycled at some point. Yet, as Ramdas explains in this quote, to be on a spiritual journey, to be on a path towards emotional freedom and consistent inner peace, is to attempt to reconnect to the eternal cosmic consciousness from which we came, and to do that while we are still alive. He says, the way you relate to death is a function of how much you are identified with that which dies. When you were born, you were undifferentiated, all of it. And then you went into somebody training, and you became somebody. You became a defined, boundaried somebody. In the zeal with which you were trained into your somebodyness, what you lost was your connection with the unity that exists behind the diversity. Back before the modern era of medicine, death, and birth for that matter, happened mostly in people's living rooms. Now it has been delegated to a distant, sterile environment. Ramdas said that the fear of death is deep in this culture and our job is to escape from it. He said, the ego is frightened by death because the ego is part of the incarnation that ends with it. That is why we learn to identify with our soul, as the soul continues after death. For the soul, death is just another moment. H.P. Lovecraft said, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown is hardwired into our reptilian brain. We are all descended from humans who had sufficient fear of the unknown to survive at least into reproductive age. We are programmed at the genetic level to survive, procreate, and to be frightened of anything that could end us. Death is the largest of all possible unknowns. Ramdas said, the way we regard death is critical to the way we experience life. When your fear of death changes, the way you live your life changes. Everyone has to reconcile themselves with their own mortality, not just once, but over and over again as our life progresses through different stages. I often joke about it by telling people that I was born, I have this body, I'm growing old, and I will die someday, and oh my goodness, I don't remember asking anybody for any of that. The more consciously we embrace our own impermanence, the more free we are from any fear of death. Ramdas said, I see my life as an unfolding set of opportunities to awaken. He said once that no one escapes the childhood socialization process unscathed. We are conditioned from an early age to think that our body and its desires and our minds and its thoughts are who we are. If we are fortunate enough to somehow wake up some, we can see that we are so much more than that. Because at the higher levels of consciousness, we perceive how we are all connected in spirit. As he put it, we are here to awaken from the illusion of separateness. The spiritual journey is less from birth to death than from separation to oneness. For someone on a spiritual path, death is a doorway, an opportunity, and all our practices are done to prepare us for that moment. Death is absolutely safe. It is like taking off a well-worn, tight shoe. It has been said that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but rather spiritual beings having a human experience. The fact that it is finite and that we are mortal is the most salient feature of anyone's life. Ram Dass said, "This body is a vehicle for this plane of consciousness. I am a soul in this body. When I identify with my soul, I have no fear of death." When my grandmother passed away in the 80s, one of my daughters was around 5 years old at that time. Some months later, she asked me in a very pained manner, why did Grandma have to die? I thought hard about how to explain this to a young child. I asked her to imagine what the world would look like if no one ever died. She got it. It is easy to forget that life can only exist because of death. According to Ram Dass, death doesn't need to be treated as an enemy to delight in life. I encourage you to make peace with death, to see it as a culminating adventure of this adventure of life. It is not an error. It is not a failure. It is taking off a tight shoe that you have worn well. This is how he summarized why we are afraid of death and how to overcome it. Most of us are convinced that we are our egos, which is who we think we are. The ego is part of our incarnation. It dies with the body, which is why we are so afraid of death. Death scares the hell out of who you think you are, especially if you think you are in this body. The shadow, especially the shadow of death, is the greatest teacher for how to come to the light. And finally, he said this, when you are fully present in the moment, there is no anticipatory fear, no anxiety, because you are just here and now, not in the future. Here are 8 quotes from Ram Dass about death and 4 photos of him at different ages in his life. Most of us are convinced that we are egos, the things that are stuck in incarnations, and that's why we're so afraid of death. When we're resting in our souls, death is just a chapter closing in a book. Our immense suffering about death has to do with our being aware of only one level of the game. When I'm with someone who is dying, I know I'm going to be in the presence of truth. When you extricate yourself from the solid identification with your body, you begin to have spaciousness to allow for the possibility that death is a part of the process of life, rather than the end of life. I feel this very deeply. People ask, do you believe that there is continuity after death? And I say, I don't believe it, it just is. That offends my scientific friends no end. But belief is something you hold on to with your intellect. My faith in the continuity of life has gone way beyond the intellect. Belief is a problem because it's rooted in the mind, and in the process of death, the mind crumbles. Faith, consciousness, and awareness all exist beyond the thinking mind. And finally, he said these 3 quotes. When you lose your fear of death, you gain a love of life. Death is an adventure, perhaps the greatest adventure of your life. Who knows what happens after death? All the models we have of it are only that, models in our minds. Here is a poem I wrote for Ram Dass after he made his transition in December of 2019. Dear Ram Dass, you gave yourself to everyone. Your love, your awareness, your time. Now you live only in our hearts. So that is where we go to be with you. Here is something I wrote when I was 14. The first line is attributed to Aristotle. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That is the core of my religious beliefs. My philosophy is that I am sometimes a whole and sometimes a part. That extra something in me that is more than just the sum of my parts scoffs at death. It knows it is eternal, that it is a fractal fragment of the infinite cosmic consciousness. Death is a change of form, not substance. How could it be anything else? Just like the law of conservation of energy in physics, which states energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only converted from one form of energy to another, spirit can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from a fragment of the whole to the whole, and then back again to being just a part. I have always visualized my life as a raindrop, and my death as that raindrop hitting the ocean. If you like this video, if you appreciate what I'm trying to do with this YouTube channel, please subscribe to it, hit the like button, and please share about my efforts on social media. There is information in the description on how to support my work, how to provide encouragement for me to continue this. I would greatly appreciate it if you would comment here with any suggestions for future videos in any way that you think I can improve these clips. Peace, love, and may the force be with you.